another edition of the Contractor's Secret Weapon weekly podcast with your hosts, Dave Negri. This program is dedicated to helping contractors, remodelers, painters, roofers, roof cleaners, and business owners in the construction industry gain an unfair advantage over the competition. This program supplies you with information that the competition doesn't even know exists. This session brought to you by ContractorsSecretWeapon.com.
Before we get into the conversation, I just want to do a shout out to our sponsors who help promote Contractor's Secret Weapon and just some of the things that they have in store for you, our listeners. Hey, is your phone ringing enough? Do you want it to ring more with highly motivated and qualified buyers that contact you, the contractor, directly? No more waiting for the phone to ring. Just answer that phone. Best Home Services leads are dedicated to making your phone ring with motivated buyers that call you directly. There's no obligation to talk with them. Just go to ContractorSecretWeapon.com/money. Fill out the form to secure your discount on the setup fee. Do it today. This special will not last forever. Check them out at ContractorSecretWeapon.com/money.
Running a small business is no easy task, and I should know because I had a service company for almost 10 years. I am the founder of a software called Radius Bomb, and it's unbelievable. And for all the listeners of Contractor's Secret Weapon, we have a special offer for you to check out. If you want to send hyper-targeted, laser-focused, super personalized postcards to your exact prospects using a map while sitting in your underwear, then go to ContractorSecretWeapon.com/Radius Bomb, and we'll give you your first 100 postcards for free. Just go to ContractorSecretWeapon.com/Radius Bomb.
Hey, this is Dave Negri with Contractor's Secret Weapon. Thanks so much for stopping by today. I've got some really neat things to go over with you today with our guest, Chris Hinkle. Chris is a practicing attorney in California, specializing in employment law, taxation, and business restructure. Former deputy district attorney in 3 counties where he prosecuted cases ranging from misdemeanors to felonies, where the consequences were life without the possibility of parole. But Chris finally got tired of that life and went into practice for himself. And one of the neat things about Chris's uniqueness to the marketplace, let me put it that way, is he has become an advocate for the trades. I've got Chris Hinkle here, and I'm excited to have him here today because, like I said in his bio, he's just got so much interesting things to talk about the trades. And Chris, I just want to thank you for being with us today, and I'm just going to give you the floor. And we talked in the bio about the trades, United Reclaiming Future. That's T.U.R.F. That's the acronym for the what would you call it? The organization that you started. Tell us a little bit about you, and then tell us what caused you to actually start this community.
Sure. And first, thanks for having me on,
Sure.
Dave. You will find out quickly that I do talk a lot, and I'm very passionate about this cause. So a little bit about myself. I am a lifelong Ventura County, California resident. I grew up, my father was a lawyer. My mom was a stay-at-home homemaker in a very conservative Republican household where I was steered towards, education and law school, that track. T.U.R.F. came about really as a result of, and I'll work my background into this, T.U.R.F. came about really as a result of a practice that I had. I was a former district attorney in 3 different counties, and after 2008, I left and I started an accounting/law firm, and I focused on business restructuring because there's one statistic that has been tried and true in the United States for the past 50 years, and that is that 80% of startup businesses fail. So we know that going in, and everybody with the American dreams thinks that, well, that's not going to apply to me. Of those 20% that remain after the first year, only 20% of that 20% are still in business 5 years later. So the question becomes why, and that was really a question that I never looked at before I got into or was hired to restructure a plumbing company, a local plumbing company here in Camarillo, California. So, but let me back up and talk about why I'm so passionate about this cause, because you can take an industry, the trades industry. What is that? And I'm really talking about the construction trades industry, because there's other trades like mechanics and the automotive, that kind of thing. But I'm really talking about right. the construction trades. And I make this argument and I speak a lot. But that industry has had the single most impact on this country, and certainly on all of our lives as individuals. And then I take it a step further and pull this stat from U.S. Economy magazine. And it says in 2016, real estate construction contributed $1.2 trillion
wow.
to the nation's economic output, which is total 6% of the U.S. gross domestic product. And I would argue that it's much higher than 6%, because at the top of that, nearly 70% is consumer spending. But where the consumers get that money to spend are the appreciating values of real estate, right? They take out lines of credit, they refinance their homes, they sell whatever they're going to do, but they have that infusion of cash that then stimulates our economy.
So if they weren't built to begin with, there would be no economy.
Absolutely. So you take this group of people, this industry that make up this industry, and you look at the overall impact, and from like I'm sitting in an office right now that surrounded by work of framers, drywallers, painters, roofers, electricians, plumbers, the whole kit and caboodle. Everybody uses the restroom. I mean, everybody's lives are affected daily by tradesmen, more so than any other industry in this country, in the history of this country. So I started thinking about this, and when I was growing up, and I grew up in a middle-class home in California, the elementary school I went to, the junior high school I went to, the high school I went to, the colleges I went to, the law school I went to, nobody talked about, even my peripheral relatives, nobody talked about grow up and be a tradesman, grow up and be an electrician. Yeah. It's proud to be a plumber or a painter or a roofer. Nobody says that, right? They steer our youth towards an education. But I like to pose this question and say, well, what does that mean? If you tell little Johnny to go to school and get an education, what does that mean? Well, go to college. Okay, and what kind of education in college? And nobody has an answer.
Right.
So then I take this example. I use the hypothetical Johnny. Johnny goes to high school and graduates with a D. Doesn't really want to go to work, kind of wants to play PlayStation and live at home with mom and dad, so he goes to junior college for 4 or 5 years, and that's typical. Then he still really doesn't want to get a full-time job, so he goes to a 4-year college for another 4 or 5 years, right? And so when he comes out with a watered-down anthropology degree, our society, America, says, hey, look at little Johnny, because he has a degree in something he can never work in, has more value to this economy and our workforce than somebody with skilled labor. And that is so appalling to me. Yeah. And I don't know why that doesn't outrage and offend more people, because that is just not the case. In fact, you can make a further argument that this country was founded upon skilled labor, people coming to the new world to learn and hone their craft and make a living.
Yeah.
And yet nobody appreciates them.
It's funny that you mentioned the anthropology thing, because it's kind of funny. I have a friend who is a very successful business owner, and his oldest daughter went to college, and last time I talked to him a couple months ago, I said, where's your daughter? She goes, she's in England. I said, what's she doing in England? Studying anthropology. And his eyes rolled. I mean, his eyes just rolled. And I go, what good is that going to do? He goes, I haven't figured that out yet.
That's so true. I mean, somebody with a liberal studies degree. Well, I don't even know what that is,
Liberal
right?
studies, yeah. Liberal
But
studies means you don't make any money. You just become you become a professional student.
exactly that's exactly the case. I actually, my son, I have a 22-year-old son that goes to Cal State Channel Islands out here in California, and I pulled up the degree programs, and I said, look, just walk down these degree programs, and every degree required, if you can't work in it, first of all, unless you have a master's or PhD and you're going to go teach or something like that. I mean, how many jobs for art history buffs are there, right? I mean,
Right.
I don't know any. So you take a look at these, and I really say this because I've been paying attention a lot lately, that these are watered down degrees. I mean, you're not, there's really no value, yet the colleges and universities are making a fortune off this. And you watch TV on the weekend, college football Saturday. How many universities are advertising on TV? It is mind-numbing,
Really?
right? Oh,
well, I don't watch that much TV, so I wouldn't know, but that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So
yeah. Wow.
So you take this, everybody's steering to get this education. Nobody knows what that education means, and they say, "Hey, look you have more value than that." I had a mason that built. I have slum stone walls around my house, and he and a buddy, and very talented guys, and there's a 135-foot section of wall,
Wow.
and they start on one end, one on one end, one on the other end, and they start going down the row, and every single time on every row, the last block fit perfectly right down the middle.
Wow.
Just fantastically talented people that struggle like no other to make a living. And yet, little Johnny with his anthropology degree, who's working at the fairgrounds doing whatever, he is worth more in the market, and I am going to change that.
And it's very sad. I'll tell you a quick story. I was in a continuing education class. I was in this year, but it was 2 years ago that it was really brought to light. And there's like 50 of us in there. And the guy that's teaching the class for continuing education, for our credits, for our licenses and stuff like that, he goes, I want anybody in this room who is under 50 raise their hand. 2 people raise their hand.
Really?
And
wow.
he says, and they were second. One was a second generation, which she was taking over the business, and another one was a fairly new contractor. He was 35. He says, this is what's happening across the United States, that people are not becoming contractors. And I said, and I piped up and I said, and the real sad problem of that is that everyone in this room competes on price like it's their last job, when you should be demanding higher prices because of the lack of competition in the marketplace.
That is so true, and it's a very, very scary and frightening concept. Yeah. And when I go around speaking, this is really what you see in California and a number of other states, is that we have, I talk about monopolies and people think monopoly board, and I'm not talking about a monopoly board. A monopoly, the definition, if you want to look it up, is something that controls either directly or indirectly the commodity or service in any industry. And how T.U.R.F. came about was uncovering 3 monopolies that lead to this scenario, and it's the same scenario everywhere I go and speak. And we have these insurance monopolies that impose these workers' compensation costs on top of employers, trades employers, which are the highest of any other industry in the trades industry, and general liability insurance. And then you have a tax monopoly in imposing employer obligation taxes on your employees. So if you want to be competitive, if you want to factor all those added costs when you hire an employee into your bidding, you're now susceptible to being underbid by somebody using illegal labor or reclassifying to 1099 labor. And you have to do that to be competitive. So the system they've set up the system for the industry with the biggest impact on this country. They've set up a system where you're trying to outbid the other one to make even less money.
Yes.
And that is mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing. And so typically what you see in any trades company, roofing, electricity, plumbing, whatever, is somebody will come out of high school and they'll go to work for a trades company and they'll learn their craft and they'll become very good at it to the point that they want to jump ship and, hey, I can do this. I can run my own business. That person, and this is not any negative comment about their intellect or anything like that, is that they have not been trained in any formal business training to see the landscape of what's it going to take for me to run this business successfully. Am I going to have to pay sales tax on the materials I use? What's the Board of Equalization here in California that will levy you in 30 days? What are these employer obligation taxes? Oh my God, I have these monthly deposit requirements for payroll taxes and all these things. And what they're really good at is their craft, their skill, their trade. So often outside industry are taking advantage of tradesmen to the point that it is nauseating. And you see when they have to recycle this, and most trades companies cannot withstand a recession. So when a recession hits, they close their doors and they go to work for a bigger trade company. And then when we come out of it, they go back and jump ship, come back and open their doors again.
Well, okay, can I stop you there?
Sure.
Okay, and that's mind-blowing to me, and I know it does happen. But why not change the mindset, learn the business, instead of going out of business?
Well, that's a question that only tradesmen can answer because most of them don't have the time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was really throwing that out too, because I know that neither one of us has the answer to that. But I'm thinking, one of the biggest, and I see it all the time with the people that I talk to in the different trades, and I can't raise my prices. I can't raise my prices. I'm afraid to raise my prices, but they don't even know if they're making a profit to even decide whether they need to raise their. It's just a crazy cycle that we get into, because we know we're good at what we do, but we're afraid to ask to provide the value or sell on value as opposed to sell on price, and I think that's where basically it comes down to, because in a lot of industries, let's face it, I know in California, and I know some places in Florida, if they're government contract, they have to figure it out so that they pay union wages. Right.
So let's. Now you've opened up several. I'm taking notes on this. So I want to address all of them.
All right. Okay. We got like 15 minutes.
No problem. Okay. I'll do the condensed version of it.
Yeah, but I mean, those are just the things that are floating around in my head and going, well, why can't we run our businesses the same all the time so that they become profitable and take everything into account?
So that's. And I've waffled back and forth on this. Yeah. And when I came up with the T.U.R.F concept, it really gives control of the major cost factors back to the industry, and they really control the game at that point. But I was thinking, what good does this do if they're still bad at business? And I see some atrocious business practices. Yeah. So that's why in T.U.R.F, there has to be a training component, an educational component to them. Here's a huge issue for me when I got into the plumbing company. The trades industry is typically a reactive industry. Yes. That means that they react to the phone ringing and then they go and bid a job. Okay. Very few, in fact, I can't think of only one that is actually proactive in their approach. And one of the things I did when I got in there, I said, well, I don't know anything about plumbing, but let's start like this. Because they said, well, the phones aren't ringing. There are less than half the plumbers in the county that I live that even have an internet presence.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. I mean, people are nowadays, with the advent of their smartphones and the internet, people are looking for, if they have a leaky faucet or whatever, they're looking online to find somebody. And these people don't have they don't even have a web presence. So we really distilled it down to 3 vital components that you have to have for T.U.R.F. You have to have a marketing component, which is huge, because even though you still want to have the presence to react, but you want to be proactive in approach. Right. You need a legal component of it, because California is a state that is very pro-employee, and it operates on the assumption that the employer has the superior bargaining position and the superior power to the hapless employee who can quit if he wanted to. So all the laws are skewed that way.
Okay.
And there are just landmines that you have to have a legal component and legal guidance for. And the other one is an accounting component. And that's kind of the overlooked area. And Dave, how often do you see this? Somebody does the shoebox approach to taxes at the end of the year to H&R Block, right? They want to keep the tax as low as possible, so they show almost no income. Well, that poses a couple of problems. One, their business has no value, right? So if they want to get a line of credit or grow it at all, well, you don't show any income, you're out of luck, buddy. But let's say something happens to that trade owner, right? And he's running the shoebox approach. At some point, can you sell it? He can't work anymore. He can't do that. He can't even sell the business because there's no value whatsoever. Right. He's showing nothing. So when you add all these three in, those and the business component to all three of those, that educates them, that gives them control of their costs, and that allows them to make money and control an industry. So it's kind of an exciting concept, and but there are some very real problems because there's some real exploitation going on and real advantage going on, or taking advantage going on in this industry. And if you let me use one contractor association, I think it's a great example.
Sure.
So we recently joined the Ventura County Contractors Association. And when I came up with the T.U.R.F concept and I've been pitching it, I have literally gotten everybody to buy in on it, with the exception of the vice president over at the Contractors Association. And so as they brought my wife and I in, we sat down in the conference room and we were talking about it, and I was telling them what we do. I said, we're able to get all your materials at better prices to get control of that cost factor. We manufacture specifically to needs to give you a true cost concept on that. We're going to offer workers' compensation in-house with general liability for pennies on the dollar. And what he said to me was, and he didn't know I was a former district attorney, he said, well, we get kickbacks from state fund for referrals on workers' comp. And so I paused. I said, what did you just say to me? Anyway, he goes further and he talks about he's got it in and getting public works contracts as well, that anytime somebody is bidding for a public works contract and they don't do the application right, he gets the phone call and he submits his paperwork and he gets the job. And so on what I missed in the T.U.R.F concept when I was pitching this was, and I wasn't mad at first, because here's a contractor that found a way to make money in this BS system that is just shoveled on top of them. So I get that. I get that. What offended me was the fact that he's referring association members, tradesmen, to state fund, our California State Fund Insurance, which is the highest rates. So you're hurting the people that are part of your, alliance, your protection alliance, and that was mind-numbing to me.
You're cutting out the competition.
Yeah, so the T.U.R.F concept is something that everybody in the industry needs, because really I give it all back to them and they will control it going forward. So it's exciting. It's like I'm stretched thin on time, but that's okay. Yeah. It's getting the message, and people like you, having a platform with people like you is just invaluable to me. So
yeah, so that's really cool that you can actually do that, because I know that it's a crazy system. It's a crazy the way that everything is set up, and it's the smaller guys that get hurt the most. And it was kind of funny. I was talking with a guy I know. He's a business consultant, and we were talking about different size businesses and stuff. And he goes, what? He said the size of business is immaterial. He said I've done business with companies doing $3, $4, $5 million, and they don't even know what a financial statement is.
Right.
And I go, what?
Absolutely true.
And I go, what? He goes, yeah. And he says, and I don't have the time to teach them. That's not my job. They should know this stuff already if they're doing that kind of business. But they're doing the key. One of the biggest challenges that I saw when I was doing a lot of new construction years ago is that your business is based on volume of cash flow.
Yep.
and you don't know if you're making a profit. You just know that you're making cash flow until that project stops, and there's no cash, and you go, I got all this debt.
Yep.
Because I got no cash. And this is one of the things that really blew me away is I was in this, and they're a big builder. I was in the, talking to the carpenter one day. He owned the company that did the carpentry, and we were talking about, profit, and I'm going, these margins are so slow. He goes, I don't even make a profit. And I go, whoa. I said, no, you got to make a profit somewhere. So he said, oh yeah. He said, I do. He said, I make a profit on the add-ons. I said, so you mean your trim and your doors and all that other stuff, you break even? He said, I might break even. I may lose a little money. He said, but I make my money on the stairs, the crown molding, the extra stuff. And I'm going, that doesn't comprehend. It doesn't comprehend to me on why you would go through all the risk involved to not know whether you're going to make a profit or not.
Well, that's an outstanding point, and this is, and I call it the Jiffy Lube approach. And this is really the approach of the plumbing industry. And you get a service call for a leaky faucet or whatever it is. The whole goal, and I've interviewed a lot of plumbing contractors, the whole goal is to get a camera into the pipe so you can upsell a repipe.
Yep.
And so everything is trying to upsell. Like you take your car into Jiffy Lube for oil change, and they want to sell you a new car essentially. So you're trying to take advantage of the very people that are putting their trust in you when they call you for the job. And I don't understand that either, but I understand it now because they can't make a living at doing a service call for $70. That doesn't cover even a fraction of the overhead.
Right.
And I have not come across, like you, I have not come across anybody that understands how to factor in their overhead into their bidding. So, I mean, I'm dealing with guys that are, grossing in excess of $10 million, and they still have no idea how to factor in their overhead. So, business practices are very important. Yeah. But, let me just share with your audience what the T.U.R.F concept is, because I don't think I've kind of explained the whole concept. So, the T.U.R.F concept is, if you look at your industry, there's two ways to make money, two ways to profit. You can increase your fees, right? But that is really a reflection of how much competition you have around you, because if you increase your fees too much, you're susceptible to being underbid by your competition. Sure. The other way to do it, or if you can do it in conjunction, it's the best possible scenario, is if you reduce your costs. And when I was in the plumbing industry and all the other trades subsets in their industry that I've talked to, is the same way. Materials are controlled. The margins on materials that you get are controlled by a monopoly, an $88.51 billion annual monopoly. They control and dictate the margins on your materials. So you may get a product and you think that Home Depot is really cool because they give you a 10% contractor's discount off that, but that material has been stepped on 300, 400, 500 times before they give you 10% off. So you have and with the advent of the internet, most customers or clients can see what you're paying for stuff. So you have very little control on your material side to make a profit. Your overhead, if you reduce that to a home office and one work truck, okay, that's as low as you can go. So there's no point in having a storefront with other things, because you're going to have to factor that in. But the labor side of things, where you have these insurance monopolies and tax monopolies, T.U.R.F, Trades United Reclaiming Future, we can change the whole game. We just brought on a political strategist, and I'm meeting with lobbyists in Sacramento, and I'll be meeting with them just at the first of the year in Washington to effect change for the tradesmen. So in the short term, we can deliver all your product to you at a savings that you cannot get on your own. A substantial savings. So that's money you get to keep in your pocket. We educate you on reducing your overhead as low as you possibly can and give you the legal protection behind that. But at the same time, we're assembling lobbyists to effect the change that is so deserved for an industry that is so underappreciated and undervalued, yet has such a great impact on all of our lives. And so the ultimate T.U.R.F model calls for training facilities. We're putting some trade programs back in the high schools in California. We're working on that right now. And we are really, and I call this the revolution, we are really starting a revolution to put this industry so deserved back on top.
Cool. That is awesome. That is so
Yeah,
awesome.
so it's a heck of a venture.
Yeah, I know, and it seems like you're getting a lot done in a short period of time.
Well, I formed, and I wrestled with how I was going to, what entity structure I was going to have on this, and it took me a month to do that because I was going back and forth. Because if I made all the members, if I made them owners right away, there'd be tax consequences for them, and I didn't want to stick them with that right now. But so this started as a limited liability company in California that will ultimately be given back to the tradesmen. But I have, advisory groups in each subset of trade, the plumbers, electricians, all that stuff, and they decide on what products to manufacture, and that gives us better leverage to get other peripheral products at better prices for them. So it's a fascinating venture, and I'm just proud to be a part of this.
That's awesome. So is there any, I know we talked about a lot, is there anything in the back of your mind, we got a few minutes left, that stands out that you wanted to just make us aware of?
Well, I say this, and people don't like to hear this, but I have to tell you, I talked about the cost factors and how you make money in business. And any time you're in an industry where 2 out of the 3 cost factors, because I argue you can only control your overhead, if those 2 out of the 3 cost factors are controlled by monopolies, pure monopolies, you cannot be as successful as you want to be. And I have to be very delicate with that, Dave, because if you tell somebody that you're not successful, they get offended by that. But success is a relative term. And remember, I want all tradesmen to be multimillionaires. I think that your impact deserves that. But I talked to a tradesman, an electrician, and I said, look, I understand that your earning potential is limited, but we could change that. And he said, well, my earning potential isn't limited. I'm in 10 states. Said, okay, well, whatever your number is, whatever number that you made last year, and we'll even use your gross figures, whatever number that is, you divide that number into the manufacturing monopoly of $88.51 billion, and we'll see how successful you think you are. Because I think it's 29 or 30 zeros after the decimal point before you actually get to a number that is that small of a fraction of a percent.
Wow.
So, but nobody tells them why it's hard to make money or why the game is rigged against them. And I'm calling everybody out. And, one of the things that I think is horrible, and, I am an attorney, is these labor law lawyers that defend trade companies make a fortune. And when I was in the plumbing company, just real quick, they were already at the tail end of a lawsuit from 2 employees that had been stealing from them.
Oh, my.
They went out, and so they got fired. The 2 employees went and hired, some plaintiff hack to come sue. And so my client went and hired a firm, about a year before I came into it, a firm to represent them. And I always say this, and tradesmen, if you take nothing else from this podcast, and you do get sued by an employee or something like that, ask the lawyer that's defending you or that you're interviewing what percentage of cases he or she settles, or that firm settles. Because what typically happens is that you hire a firm and you're going to get double and triple and quadruple billed. And so in the case of the plumbing company, the firm had run up their legal fees to $125,000. And I came in right before the settlement, and I told them, I said, look, your firm, your lawyers who are supposed to have your back are going to start working against you now and work a settlement out of you. And this is how they're going to do it. They are going to say, well, if you want to go to trial on this case, it's going to be this much money, knowing that you don't have that much money, and then they can get out of the case and move on to their next victim. So they typically, exactly what I did, what I told them they would do, they worked a settlement for $200,000 on employees that were stealing from them. So what kind of defense did they get? So the only ones making money are the lawyers in that situation. And so as I'm looking at the trades, I'm just really calling BS on all the different entities or groups that are taking advantage of these people. And I'm saying no more. because you're not getting that one by T.U.R.F. It's not going to happen.
That's awesome.
So
that's really awesome that there's an advocate for the guys that deserve it. I mean, not that they're the only ones that deserve it, but finally,
sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, it gives them a voice.
Yeah, it gives them a voice. Cool. So, Chris, how can our listeners get in touch with you and find out more about the T.U.R.F. System?
Sure. Okay, you can go onto our website, which is www.turf2power.com. You can call me direct at any time at area code 805-437-1735, or you can check the website for some of our speaking events that I put on. I put them all. I speak at all of them. I have a team of people with me, and I want to be clear about this. Most membership associations and things like that are just opportunities to upsell other services and stuff. That is not what T.U.R.F. is about. We are not here to upsell anything. We are here to provide three things for you: protection, profit, and product. And that gives you a voice and leads to change. And the change that I want, that I'm working on right now for all construction tradesmen, are tax credits, both at the state level and at the federal level.
Wow.
And total control of the insurance for the trades, meaning that we can offer all insurance for pennies, and that way everybody can operate legally above board and be protected and proactive in their approach to doing their craft, their trade. And I just want to say thanks to all of them and you as a tradesman for your contribution to this society. And it's something that has not been said in the past, and I'm willing to tell everybody thank you.
Cool. Chris, thanks so much. It's really been awesome to really talk about this and really get into the depth of it.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. Anytime.
Again, I want to thank you for joining us and investing your time with us today. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and if you did, go to iTunes and give us a shout-out. You can also go to our website, www.contractorsecretweapon.com, and check out today's episode and leave us a comment in the bottom of the page. And if you haven't gotten your 15 secret weapon strategies to getting higher-end customers, get it while you're at the website. Also, I want to thank again our sponsors for keeping this podcast alive for your profit-making pleasure. And so go be profitable this week. Work smarter, not harder, and learn how to leverage your time and your knowledge so that you can be more profitable. Again, see you next week.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Contractor's Secret Weapon Podcast with Dave Negri. We would love to hear your comments about this episode, so visit us online at www.contractorsecretweapon.com and let us hear your thoughts. If you were listening via iTunes, please leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive, the more other contractors will benefit from this show. Thank you, and see you next time here on the Contractor's Secret Weapon Podcast.